I've just been reading about you, watching your videos on, YouTube, and I'm fascinated about the work that you do. You're really good at what you do. And if you're just joining us, guys, let me just give you a short profile of Yvonne Adhiambo. She's an award-winning author and one of the most significant voices in contemporary African literature. In 2003, she won the Kenyan Prize for African Writing for her short story, The Weight of Whispers. Her acclaimed debut novel, Dust, rooted in family history, explores Kenya's journey from colonial times to the unrest following the 2007 and 2008 presidential elections, and also went on to win the Jomo Kenyatta Prize for Literature. In 2019, she released her second novel, The Dragonfly Sea, a coming-of-age story set on the Kenyan island of Pate. Oh, look at that. Pate. I love it. Thank you for correcting me. And I also read an amazing piece that you wrote, a tribute celebrating the life of Raila Odinga, the late Right Honorable Raila Odinga.
Yes.
Very beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I was hoping maybe you could read it to the audience at some point.
I could at some point, yes.
Yeah.
You have a copy?
I do have a copy.
Okay, good.
Yes. I'll give it to you in just a bit. But I want to bounce off your book, The Dragonfly Sea, because I know you have a love for the oceans. And in many ways, I think I would compare Raila's life to the oceans, right? Very vast, ever shifting, and profoundly impactful, right? So he meant many things, many different things to many people out there. In your own words, how would you describe this giant of a man, Raila Odinga?
I think what a beautiful both metaphor and analogy. You're right. He was very much an ocean in both his vastness, but also in his sense of mystery and the impact of his life. I think it would be very hard. I almost feel it's very early days yet. I think there's a part of me when I hear somebody that I really did valorize. So there's a part of me that's still choked up. There are very few people, I think, in the world that achieve the possibility of what one would call immortality. And he got there. He's never going to be forgotten.
Right.
There's no way anyone can forget him. And it's not necessarily because of the politics, but because he was a man who managed to pour out his entire life so fully and so thoroughly. He's somebody who would be able to say he lived thoroughly. And it's a very rare gift to be able to say that, I've lived absolutely fully.
That's right.
In every single way.
Yeah.
Yes.
And whenever he had engagements with Kenyans, his followers especially, he would occasionally say, Tunaenda Canaan, something like that, right? So this idea of the promised land has deeply shaped the lives of Kenyans and his followers as a symbol of enduring hope and faith in a better tomorrow, right? So do you see parts of yourself reflected in that kind of eternal hope?
Yes, I'm a Kenyan, and to be Kenyan is to be both pissed off and hopeful at the same time. We have this capacity to believe in our exceptionalism, and I'm not immune to that. And that's why we're constantly striving, constantly critical of the things that fall short of our great aspirations. To be Kenyan is to assume that the marathon belongs to us. I love the arrogance of Kenyans when we are abroad and there's a marathon, because the question is usually, but which Kenyan is going to win? So that very much reflects the idea that we deserve the best and we belong to the best.
That's right. That's amazing. Yeah. And I think right now we can just talk about this really powerful presentation that you had at the University of Cologne. And I think it actually inspired the conversation that we're going to have tonight. Diversifying perspectives.
Right.
Yeah, so at the beginning of that presentation, you talk about we need to have a profound sense of urgency that we are living through, quote unquote, Act 1 of an existential struggle. So what do you think defines this moment for humanity and for Africa?
Kevin, the world is shifting. There are what you call tectonic shifts. You cannot deny the fact that the idea of history. There's a term that people tend to use, the fin de siècle, the end of the century kind of moment. The German word is Zeitgeist, the spirits of the time, meaning that everything that has gone on, say, for the last 500 years is in flux. The West is absolutely in crisis. The emergence of China and the old civilizations, Persia and Russia, what it actually means for both Kenya and for the African continent is that we better get our act together. And better get our act together quickly. The assumption that it's no longer business as usual. And I think what worries me is that we've got systems and structures that assume that the old is still, in place. It isn't.
Right.
And we're not doing the kind of muscular thinking we need in order to ask new questions. What does it mean for us to be human?
That's
and
right.
what kind of future do we want?
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned that muscular thinking. So you're talking about this imagination. We need to have this. We need to have a different narrative, a different approach to conversations and storytelling and imaginations.
Mm-hmm.
How do we build that kind of imagination collectively then as a people?
That's a beautiful question. And I'm so glad you're actually asking that because we have not asked that question before. That's one. Or the sense of the urgency of what we need. How do we do it is by doing the things that you're doing right now, by calling more people to the task, by inviting people into these circles of guys, let's sit together and let's just say, what does the future look like? Let's draw the future for ourselves. Let's tell the story of ourselves. Who are we now? Who are we now? And who are we in the year 3000? Right? And then work backwards from there. And to know that it's not impossible. China did it. What we call the BRI is actually China telling a story of itself, about itself to the world and what the world means for it, and then putting systems and structures to realize it. We keep confusing policy for mythology, and we don't do any work around mythology. So a lot of our, Kevin, we have not even as the African continent, have we ever asked the question, who are we? We've never asked ourselves that question. Who are we?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting you put it like that, and it's a very difficult question to ask because some of us, we just found ourselves over here. We are who our parents told us, or who society has decided we are, and it's very sad. And it's going to lead me to my next question. What do you think it means to be human in Kenya as of right now?
That's interesting. That's a deep question. To be Kenyan right now is to be in a place of uncertainty. To be human is to be uncertain right now. To be human is to ask, what does it mean for us to be Kenyan right now? I mean it, not even in a joking way, because I don't know how you'd answer that question. What does it mean for you to be Kenyan right now? But to put that question out so that we can get back answers. What does it mean for us to be Kenyan? Yeah.
For me, I don't know. When I look at the life of Raila Odinga, it gives me a reference point because people look at him as an ideal. Right? So what it means for me to be Kenyan is to be resilient.
Yeah.
To keep on pursuing this, this idealistic world, know. And I also refer to last year's Gen Z Maandamano.
Yes.
You can tell that we are all we want. There's a certain potential that I feel like most guys believe in that we can leave out.
Yes.
So that's what it means to be Kenyan, to be curious, to be adventurous, to constantly seek that idealistic nature that I guess we haven't achieved yet.
We haven't achieved that. Or to also look for the kind of story we want for ourselves. What kind of world do we want for ourselves? In terms of story, it doesn't need to be. It's not a policy question. It's a dream question.
I agree.
It's a question that comes from the place of imagination.
Yeah.
Do we imagine ourselves? What do you call it? Riding in the stars.
Right.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So there's a conversation that you were in with an amazing artist. I forget his name. A couple of years ago. I just watched that last night, and you referred to the great historian Ogot. Bethel Ogot. He was behind the conceptualization of Kenya. And you mentioned how this project Kenya is dead. Do you still agree? Do you still believe that it's dead?
What is dead is the project Kenya that was designed in 1963. There is another project Kenya that the ones we're calling Gen Z, somebody yesterday called them the Gen K, Generation Kenya,
right,
are dreaming. And it's a very different kind of Kenya. And again, somebody I was speaking to earlier had said, we're not our parents, and our parents are not their parents. So, and the new generation is a different kind of Kenyan.
Right.
So, and I like you, I have faith in their Kenya dream.
Yeah.
And particularly because they're particularly emphatic about the idea that, Kenya ni home. They're not interested in leaving or going anywhere. They want this country to work for them. And they'll sink or swim with this country. Yes.
So you describe the post-colonial as a lie.
It is.
What does that mean for our listeners?
What does it mean for our listeners is that we still have a lot of work to do. We may have had the performance. These days I even call it the theater of flag independence. But the real place is around sovereignty, around the idea particularly of economic sovereignty. If we are in a position now where we're changing our food laws to suit foreigners, it speaks very little about our real kind of, not just independence, our own kind of sense of sovereignty, both personal, but also, food sovereignty. The reality is that if whoever feeds you controls you, and it's very painful that I think our kind of the leadership structures don't really think that these almost abstract ideas really do matter in terms of. It takes us back to that question. I said we haven't ever tried to really answer who are we.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting also, and that the piece, on the presentation to do with diversifying perspective, you mentioned how in Kenya we're told to accept history and move on. Why do you think there's such global pressure to forget instead of confront?
It's not just global. It is. Yes, you're right. It's global pressure. There's a discomfort. Humanity has a discomfort with dealing with its ghosts. We don't want to ever. We're not comfortable with looking at the mess and the wounds and the harm we have created for ourselves and for others. So we think that it's a very childish act. You think that by burying your head in the sand like an ostrich, the thing will disappear.
Yeah.
Or you kick it down the ground, you kick it down the road, so your children will have to deal with your mess.
That's right.
So it's both a tragedy, but because whether we like it or not, and that was what the book Dust was about. Whether we like it or not, the ghosts that we try to bury will come for us.
So obviously, I know this is in relation to the Kenyan context somehow. Do you think? Because I look at Kenya as a very progressive African state, but when we talk about historical injustices, do you think we're actually progressing as we should without addressing historical injustices? We
will not go anywhere. We will take 8 steps forward and 20 steps backward if we do not deal with the things that, because the injustices hold us. They're chains. They're psychological chains, they're emotional chains, they're cultural chains as well, and they're national chains. And we'll keep wondering, why is it that we can't ever move? We cannot move because we do not dare to look at the things that we have done, the wounds we've created for one another, right, the land injustices, the people we have murdered. So and they need to be named.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I guess now, how does the failure to process colonial trauma continue to shape our politics, especially our identity, and even the way we imagine the future? Yeah.
Yeah. Kevin, the tragedy of our fear of dealing, of confronting, not just colonial trauma. Actually, let's start with colonial trauma.
Yeah.
It means then that we keep saying that the history and the story of Kenya only begins when? In 1910,
right.
when a British imperial company decides to call us Kenya. We neglect the fact that we're custodians of human history. We're a 2 million year old place and landscape. Even if we're not called Kenya, doesn't mean that Kenya did not exist. So then we start our history from somebody else's perspective, not from our own. Because we are wounded, because this thing that shook the world, shook our world, changed our realities in such intense ways, it is a very painful thing to look at. I'm tempted, I refuse now to use the word colonial too easily, because the word colonial disguises what this atrocity, the atrocity that unfolded, the atrocities that unfolded, the questions we need to ask. We actually need to gather around in a very sheltering way to ask, what does it mean to lose? We were a defeated people.
Yeah.
We were a conquered people.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean? We were a people whose men were turned into laborers, whose women were victimized, whose land was completely alienated. What does that actually mean? It doesn't go away. When the West very easily speaks about the Jewish situation during World War II, they set up systems of reparation. They set up you're allowed to talk about intergenerational trauma,
right.
If you're white, but if you're African, you're not allowed to say that you're traumatized. You've inherited traumas and anguishes.
Yeah.
You can't have this conversation about the ways we are triggered when we see atrocities happening elsewhere, and to understand that triggering is because we have inherited a wound that our great-grandfathers didn't talk about, our grandfathers didn't talk about, our parents didn't talk about, and now we still refuse to talk about these things.
Yeah. While you're speaking, I'm reminded of a conversation that I had with an aunt of mine who's from Gem, Akala. And she was telling me, Kevin, when you go to Kango Kajaramogi, which is the home of Raila Odinga, in the museum, there's all these pictures, and they've really documented their past. So there's even footages where Raila, he keeps on talking about his parents and his history and all these other things. I guess my question is now, how important is it for the younger Kenyans, especially this Gen Z and the Gen Alpha, to go back to their roots, to engage with their parents and the grandparents and about their past, in order to address this, some of these things that we went through, some of the things that they went through, I guess, right? And how important is it to actually, just, for example, the work that you're doing, document this in the form of stories, am I in picture form and video form, right? Maybe you can talk about that.
Okay, I think that's priority. It's priority work. It's absolutely essential. But when you look at nations that have recomposed themselves, I'm thinking of Vietnam, China, and even South Korea. North Korea as well. One of the very first things they ever did was to recover and salvage their histories, as very intentionally. Because when we imagine if we remembered that we are custodians of the entire human history, Turkana, 2 million years. We suddenly you feel a sense of expansiveness.
Wow.
Do you understand that? Do you understand how big we are?
It's true.
that we are custodians of all of humanity's history. We're custodians of people who were traversed the oceans 2,000 years ago. Some of the first boats that were ever created in human history come from Eastern Africa. So these become things that you own and claim. So it's not just that, but it's also the wounds, of course. When I say, what happened, how did Kenya's dream get betrayed from 1963? Who were the people that ended up being killed and why? Piogama Pinto, Agnes Kodhek, Tom Boyer. I think a lot of the young people I was following on social media were reacting in this kind of way about stories that maybe some of us had taken for granted about Raila's life. A lot of us, I was surprised that so many of them did not know that Raila had been detained with such brutality.
That's very sad.
I know, and I kind of think, first of all, what's happened to our school curriculum? What's happened to our history curriculum? And if history was removed, why was it removed? And then secondly is what more can certainly we do, not just as authors, but maybe even as filmmakers. Again, referring back to Asia, both South Korea and China, one of the things when China had a kind of existential crisis after the death of Chairman Mao, one of the things that Deng Xiaoping later on does is pay for the filmmakers to create historical epics, to remind the people of China that this is actually who you are. You're a 3,000-year-old people. Right, and crises have not. You've gone through crisis before and won, but they were able to see themselves on these kind of epics,
right?
And draw from that energy to remind themselves about who they were. And we need that kind of thing.
Absolutely,
yes.
So you speak of the flailing hegemon, the idea that the West would rather destroy the planet than lose its dominance. So how does this shape the stories we're told about democracy, freedom, and civilization?
Do you know, Kevin? I think at one point you have to just say, guys, it's enough. The lie is enough. It's enough. Let's stop the hypocrisy. Let's stop the pretenses. You see what's unfolding in Gaza right now. That's the reality. And I think one of a professor was saying, Yvonne, the reality, this has been the Western story. But what they're very good at is creating, remember when I said we need to create stories? They're very good at creating other stories on top of the reality. And always stories that make them look good. So they're custodians of democracy, of human rights, and the rule of law. These days they're calling it what? What's it now called? Rule-based order. So again, the word always changes according to what's convenient. To understand that, you're talking about people who are, who are morally empty. And I'm not. It's not an accusation to just say that this is the reality, guys. You're morally empty, and there's nothing you have to give. But what does that mean for us? It means then we have to learn to also draw from our own kind of both imaginative and moral and ethical resources, to be confident enough to create values that allow us to stand in the world as custodians also of the world. We have a right to be in the world. The world does not need to be mediated by other people.
Wow.
Yes.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Do you think this would happen in our times when Africans would actually put themselves on a pedestal and have dignity, speak like, you're lords of the world too, right? Do you foresee it happening in our times? Of course, you're doing such an amazing work with the beautiful books that you're writing. You've added so much resource, when it comes to shifting our narratives about ourselves. Do you think we're going to witness this change of perspective?
I love what you just said. Put ourselves on a pedestal. I think that's so what you're doing is implanting the image. Yes, it's possible, because if China could do this within 30 years, Kevin, within 30 years they could do this. In the year 2001, I was part of a university team that was supposed to go to China to do social development work for them, to teach them how to do things. How foolish we were. And I'm another one who doesn't believe in the social development agenda. But if a people decide that this is our vision. We stand astride the entire world. And to say that even when you think you have nothing, and then to build systems and structures to help you realize that vision that you have for yourself. Nothing is impossible. Nothing is impossible, Kevin.
It's beautiful. Do you think global institutions like the UN, the ICC, and Geneva Conventions were meant to protect the majority of the world?
No, they were never created for the global majority world. They were created to support a what do you call it? I call it the Occidental, but kind of a supremacist idea. And you know what? And it's not. I don't even say that with bitterness. They created systems to protect their particular, grift. We need to also create infrastructure and structures and institutions to protect our particular vision. It's just that this vision that has dominated the world for 500 years. Fortunately, I'd say it's falling apart. And unfortunately, is that spaces like ours, the African space, the African continent, it's not good to say the useless African Union, but there's a space of opportunity for African institutions now to reimagine the world, to reimagine the universe, and to recognize the reality that the world is falling apart. So long live the rest of the world.
I like how you put it in the presentation, diversifying perspectives. You said we need to have a sense of urgency because I'm reminded of how the world isolated Africa during the COVID-19 pandemic.
You remember that, yes.
You remember when we desperately wanted the vaccines?
My goodness.
Oh my days, it was sad. It was brutal.
I was not sad. My attitude was this. Wake up, my people. See, this is exactly what they think of you. So you need to take this opportunity to offload, to stop this Stockholm syndrome thing you have.
Right.
These people are, and you remember also that how many were looking forward to the, literally speculating and lurking around hoping for our mass deaths.
I can remember.
You remember
vividly.
that?
Yeah.
And reporters coming around asking, why aren't you dying?
Right.
Are you thinking,
Yeah.
you ghouls, you phantoms, you absolute ghosts, go away. But to understand that these people showed you what they think of you. And again, it's not about, don't be bitter or anything. You understand, this is who you people are. We don't hold it against you. That means we're very different kinds of human beings.
Interesting.
Yes. No, don't be, there's no need for any bitterness. Just say, you do you. You do you with your small-mindedness. But maybe try to keep away from us as well. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very profound. And you invite us to create a myth of our own.
Yeah.
That was very powerful. Why do you think myth making and storytelling are still powerful tools when it comes to the liberation stories, when it comes to freeing ourselves as African people?
Let me ask you, Kevin. Point out any country in the world that is not built upon a myth. Pick one country, any country in the world. Let's take the one we like to think about, America.
Okay.
Let me ask you. Is there any country in the world that that has not built itself and created itself around a myth?
No, I don't think I know of any country.
Yes.
Yeah.
Everyone operates from a myth about themselves.
Yeah.
We're the only ones who are expected to operate from policy designed for us from World Bank. Not a mythological story about ourselves.
Wow. Yeah.
We are, if I were to say...
I want to jump in there.
Yeah.
Even if you had a mythological story, it was trashed. It was perceived to be primitive and having no place in the modern world.
But our challenge is, it's not a them challenge, it's an our challenge. It's a policy challenge. It's a challenge of institutions that do not think, and institutions and officials that do not understand that everything starts with a story. Everything starts with a story. What if we decided to call ourselves, we are the owners of the marathon? What does that mean? What does that suddenly turn us into? We are a people of great endurance. The marathon is the art of master human beings. Kenya has owned and dominated the marathon for 40 years. What if we call ourselves the people of the marathon? For example, and it's amplify that myth, build up the things that people like our dear Eliud Kipchoge says. No human is limited. No Kenyan is limited. Imagine what shift happens. Even when I'm saying that, I'm looking at your face, you suddenly become, oh my goodness, how big I am, how grand I am.
Exactly.
Why should I be afraid of the things that I don't understand?
Bouncing off your very amazing book, The Dragonfly Sea, in one of your talks, you're talking about how you decided to rename the Indian Ocean. Please elaborate.
No, I didn't rename it. I just reclaimed our name.
Oh.
To remind my fellow Africans and Kenyans that the word Indian Ocean is an 18th century idea by British and Portuguese who are obsessed with finding India. It was never called the Indian Ocean. It has 27 other names, including Ziwaku, which is the preferred name of the Swahili coast. But it was also called the Ethiopian Sea, the Zingiber Sea. It has all these amazing other names that reflect the reality of our own agency and belonging. And to remind also our people, part of the reason the politics of naming, especially geographies and topographies, means that those who name lay claim to it. One of the more recent documents from both the US and the EU they're claiming that they're Indo-Pacific powers. You see, the Atlantic is kind of yesterday's history.
Right.
So everyone's moving in the direction of the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. So what do these people do? These powers, these interlopers, they lay claim to the waters and say, yes, even us, we're Indian Ocean people. But what strikes me in all their documents, the entire Africa is left out, as if Africa has no ocean maritime agency. And part of the reclamation is that because of the nature of the colonial enterprise, the idea that Africans had boats and were going out into the ocean and meeting our peoples in the other worlds had to be destroyed in the mythology, in the creation of the idea of the African as stagnant, as never going anywhere, has no access. Because the moment you say that the African had boats and ships and were traveling all over the oceans, you're immediately saying that these people could think, these people had technology, these people could navigate, these people could write, yes, these people could trade. These people
were explorers.
Were teachers.
Yeah.
So part of when I was initially doing the research for Dragonfly Sea, I think my anger comes when you find the literature, mostly from British and German anthropologists, deliberately undermining and erasing the idea of African oceanic agency and oceanic authority. So that the only African you find and their relationship with the ocean is one who is scared of the sea or who is cargo on somebody else's boat.
Damn.
Yes.
That's really powerful. Guys, I'm inviting you to call us, by the way. I hope you're open to questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
0719012 We have the great Yvonne Adhiambo Owuor with us in studio. In your view, Yvonne, what does it mean to rehumanize the world? True story. Rehumanize as opposed to dehumanize. Rehumanize is the word that I haven't really heard before.
To rehumanize, it's from Frantz Fanon, who says the gift that the world, well, he called it, well, I guess I lay claim to it for Africa. Africa's role is to rehumanize the world, because there's been this 500 years of diminishing and not just dehumanization, a mockery of the human being, the outraging of the human, almost like a deformation of the human self and the human essence. Rehumanizing is the reclamation of all that is good, true, and beautiful about us. I think the Kiswahili word is utu.
Okay. Yeah.
I really love that word utu. And it's linked to the notion of ubinadamu, to be able to meet the other person and recognize the sacredness of their humanity.
What do we lose? Speaking of rehumanizing, what do we lose as African people? What do we lose when we let other folks, I don't want to say races, tell our own stories?
No one's going to tell a story of you that honors you.
Okay.
Especially if they have the chance to put themselves as not just protagonists, but to turn you into their plaything.
Yeah.
Very few are mature enough to meet another human being with a sense of both hospitality and care. And respect for the sacredness of our humanity. And that is something that I think has probably kept the continent going despite all the excesses and atrocities it has experienced. But to see how we can leverage that as a superpower. Yeah.
That's right. Artists, writers, ordinary Kenyans, African people. I guess the question is, how can we transform all the things that we've been through, the grief, the loss, the historical pain, into that energy? How can we transform it into creative power? And transform it into what you call a love story for all humanity?
It's such a beautiful question. And thank you for that. I don't think it's a question one person can answer, but I think that your having asked it means then I hope there are many, many people who will be thinking about it. And if there's a way we can converge at some point to say, okay, this is the thought that I have about this. And to understand that despite everything, we are the people who are still here. We were the people who were meant to have been condemned to death. So we're the people who came from the tomb, and we're still here. There's the notion that diamonds are created out of extremes of pressure, extremes of the extreme kind of weight, and I don't know of any other human people who have experienced the kind of both outrage but also pressure, both spiritually, emotionally, physically, than the Africans have done.
Yeah.
And to be able to take space to say, what have we become then? What have we become? Because the fact that we're still here means it points to a great power from within. What is that? And maybe we haven't had time to find a name and leverage it.
Yeah, I love that. And let me ask you something, Yvonne. When it comes to remembering, because you were talking about we need to remember, moving forward, does it mean we trace our original myth story that was already there, or coming up with a new one? What does that remembering mean?
It's both. We need to retrieve that which is buried, because it's not lost to us. We just need to find it, and give it a place, and because even the story we tell ourselves in the present has a lineage. You can it's difficult. We can still reimagine a story from out of from the kind of the middle part of the story, but I think it's even better to try to find the roots of it, the deeper part of it, to draw from it in order to imagine the next part of the story, to really enter into the idea of lineage and transmission.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You said it's both retrieving and, of course, coming up with a new one. If you were to write the new origin myth of Africa and of Kenya, how would it sound like?
I don't know. I know how it would start. It would be I know how it would start. I don't know how it would continue because I would not want to ever do it alone. I'd want to do it with many of us, to visualize it. But I would say, a people emerged 2 million years ago. I'd say we're a 2 million year old people, and we've got the receipts for that in Turkana. I'd go to Turkana. This is what I'd do. I'd take us. I'd organize trips for us to Turkana, to the sites. I'd say, let's sit here and let's listen. Let's hear what the ground, the earth, the cosmos says about us. And what the bones say about us. This is who we are. Yes, and that's where I'd start the story.
That's beautiful. Wow, that makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. And so now I told you, I was telling you earlier about this beautiful piece that you wrote.
Oh, thank you.
About Raila Odinga. And I think in your own words, if you read it out loud to Kenyans, to the audience that's listening to us right now, it will make a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. So, all right, let me just pass it to you real quick. Mm-hmm. There you go.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Baba Biro Yaoneo, the people sang today. Right Honorable Raila Odinga was Owuor, Won Nyikang, son of the Nile. Yeah. He rose from the wounded springs of a troubled, beautiful country, carrying the silt of generations, the dreams, quarrels, and stubborn faith of a people who refused to dry up. No part of his flow left us untouched. An engineer who loved history, he transformed from man to movement to myth. He trusted in the goodness of a people and nation that burned through his strength and tears, yet he kept believing. They mocked him, jailed him, cursed him, and still he rose, insisting Kenya was worth every struggle, every startled dream. Even when the nation broke his bones and blinded him, left him thirsting in a dark cell without news of his mother's death, he loved us still. In that imperfect, tumbling, fighting, trusting, forgiving, emerging, he earned life's rarest gifts. To become immortal, one must first be spent utterly. He did. The prize, immortality. He is inscribed into the history he adored. I think such love for a prickly people and nation is dangerous. Haunted, haunting. It costs too much, forgives too much, and must smile through 30 million small betrayals. We never asked him what it took to carry us all, or whether he grew bone-tired or lonely. Perhaps it is right that his great heart gave way one morning, far from the clamor among loved ones in another land. And the heart said, "It is well, Jaduong. Turn north, join the eternal seas, rest a while. For warrior kings do not die, they are transmuted." Only now do we glimpse the soul of one whom country, people, and dream made more than man or monument. He was the river itself. Sure, just, wise, tender in his turbulence, feeding the roots of a land that sought to contain him but never could hold his flow. Thor Iseloyo, Thor Ogol, Baba Agwambo, Tingarao, Jacom, Joey, Oriti Baba, one Kenya. The ancestors are calling you, so we must let you go. But we carry one of your lessons: to live fiercely in purpose, to love through the shadows, to make faith visible in who we are, in our deeds, not just words. So, good night, Baba. Erokamano Jacom, Lala Salama.